Chosen ones, pause for just a moment. You've been sensing something, haven't you? A shift, a silence, people pulling away without explanation. And deep down you've asked yourself, what did I do wrong? But here's the truth. You didn't do anything. In fact, the very reason they're avoiding you has nothing to do with your actions and everything to do with their own. See, when someone lies about a chosen one, they think they're just stirring up drama. But when they lie to the wrong person, someone who knows your heart, someone God positioned to see your truth, the fallout is spiritual. That's what's happening. They spread rumors, painted false pictures, and maybe even turned others against you, but that lie landed in front of someone with discernment. And instead of tarnishing your name, it backfired. It exposed them. Take Rebecca's story, a faithful woman showing up each day with integrity, grace, and kindness. But one bitter co-worker, fueled by jealousy, started spreading whispers. She's fake. She's manipulative. Lies born from insecurity. But those lies reached a supervisor who actually knew Rebecca, and instead of buying the slander, they pushed back. They confronted the source, and the mask fell. That's why the liar avoids her now, not because she did anything wrong, but because they did. It's guilt. It's a shame. It's a spiritual consequence. Isaiah 54:17 declares it, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." You are not just a person to be trifled with. You are marked, covered, and protected. That awkward tension you now feel when they walk past you. It's not in your head, it's their conscience reacting to your light. Your presence reminds them of their dishonesty. You're not the problem, you're the proof. What you're experiencing isn't ordinary social fallout, it's evidence of divine protection and exposure. When you walk in divine purpose, darkness will try to discredit your light. But truth always has a way of surfacing. And when it does, the very ones who try to smear your name will be the ones avoiding your gaze. So don't shrink, don't second guess. You're not being punished, you're being stay tuned, because we're about to uncover 7 deeper truths about why they're avoiding you. And why your glow up is only just beginning. Point 1, they got exposed by the truth. Chosen ones, let's pull the veil off this real quick. The very first and loudest reason they're avoiding you, the truth came out. And not just any truth, your truth. The kind they worked hard to bury under gossip, manipulation, gaslighting, and sweet smiling deception. They lied. They twisted stories, dropped your name in conversations they had no business mentioning it in, and painted themselves as the victim just to protect their fragile little egos. But here's the thing about lies. They travel fast, but they don't go far. The divine, God, the universe, whatever you call that higher power, it always comes back around. Lies might start strong, but truth finishes undefeated. The truth has a vibration, and that frequency can't be silenced. It doesn't need a megaphone, it just needs time. And once the lie started cracking at the edges, once people started putting 2 and 2 together, the whole illusion came crashing down. What they never expected was that someone would see you clearly, someone with discernment, not just eyes. See, not everyone buys into gossip. There are people who can look at you, watch how you carry yourself through storms, how your energy doesn't match the noise, and they know. They sense the mismatch between what was said about you and what you showed up as. And just like that, the spell broke. Their act over. When that happened, whew, you could almost hear the internal chaos from across the room, embarrassment, guilt, full-on panic. Because now it's not just about what they said, it's about the fact that you knew the whole time. You clocked their passive aggressiveness, you saw through their fake compliments. You heard the tension behind their laugh. You knew, but you stayed graceful, silent. You let God handle it. And that's what really stings them. Not only did the lie fall apart, but they also had to face the fact that you knew and you still didn't stoop to their level. That's why they're avoiding you now. It's not that you've changed, it's that their mask melted under the heat of your light. And standing in the truth of who you are makes them feel naked, but don't get bitter. Get better. Their avoidance is not a punishment, it's a revelation, a compliment in disguise. It means your character was louder than their fiction. It means your consistency proved them wrong. And now, They have to live with that, with the regret, with the awkward silences when your name comes up in rooms you're not even in, with the realization that God didn't just vindicate you, He used them to do it. That's right. God uses your enemies not just to test you, but to teach them. You became the mirror. And when they looked in it, they didn't see you. They saw their own dishonesty, their jealousy, their fear. And now they can't face you without facing that truth. So they avoid you because your presence reminds them of the parts of themselves they'd rather not confront. But keep rising, chosen one. Walk like the lie never touched you. Smile like their opinion was never your truth. Because when God clears your name, He doesn't just redeem your reputation, He elevates your platform. Let them sit in their regret. You've got higher places to be. Point 2. Their conscience won't let them rest. Have you ever tried to look someone in the eye after betraying them? It's not just awkward. It's like staring into a reflection of your own guilt. Something inside recoils. The eyes, often called the windows to the soul, become too honest, too revealing. That's because eye contact isn't just about vision, it's about truth. It's soul-to-soul communication, a spiritual transaction where masks fall off and the real is revealed. When someone has wronged you, especially if you're a chosen one, looking you in the eye becomes unbearable. Not because you're angry or vengeful, but because your spirit convicts them in ways words never could. Your very presence unsettles them. It's not admiration that makes heads turn when you enter a room. It's guilt. It's the weight of spiritual dishonor crashing against the conscience of someone who tried to bury their betrayal under smiles and small talk. There is something profoundly spiritual about betrayal, not just emotional or social. In ancient cultures, trust and honor were sacred, even covenantal. When someone broke that bond, it wasn't just a moral lapse. It was a soul-level fracture. Modern psychology even confirms that betrayal trauma affects brain patterns similarly to physical injury. So when someone lies about you, gossips behind your back, or slanders your name to protect their own, they create a wound not only in your heart, but also in their own spirit. That's why they avoid your gaze. You don't just remind them of their wrong, you remind them of their lost integrity. And when you carry yourself with grace, humility, and strength, despite what they did, it only sharpens the contrast. You become a living conviction, a reminder that they didn't just fail you, they failed themselves. The reason they can't face you isn't because they don't care, it's because they do, but in all the wrong ways. They care about being seen for who they pretended to be, not who they truly are. And you, with your authenticity, strip that illusion away. Betrayers often create false narratives to justify their actions. They turn you into the villain so they can play the hero in their own story. But when you show up, calm, dignified, and still blessed, their story starts to fall apart. Your success, your peace, your resilience, it all screams one thing they can't silence. You were never the problem. This is where the spiritual reality kicks in. In biblical terms, the chosen are those marked by God for a divine purpose. That doesn't mean they're perfect, but it does mean they're protected. Psalm 105:15 says, "Touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm." When someone betrays a chosen one, they're not just breaking a human bond, they're interfering with God's blueprint. That's why they feel spiritual unrest. You've become a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. You reflect back the truth they've worked hard to avoid. The jokes don't land anymore, the fake laughter dies down. The room grows silent, not because you said something, but because your spirit said everything. Now here's what separates the chosen from the broken. You didn't retaliate. You didn't stoop to their level. You watched it all unfold with spiritual clarity and emotional discipline. You noticed the energy shift. You caught the shady comments. You heard the whispers, but you stayed still. That wasn't passivity, it was power. While they played emotional games, you stood in divine alignment. And now that the dust has settled, they're still playing checkers, while you're already on a whole new board. Don't let the discomfort of others make you question your light. People with dirty hands will always feel uneasy around clean souls. That's not arrogance, it's spiritual law. Your presence carries clarity, and clarity always disturbs confusion. That's why they fumble their words, avoid your eyes, and suddenly have somewhere else to be. You didn't expose them. They exposed themselves in the presence of truth. But hear this loud and clear. Bitterness is not your portion. Revenge is not your assignment. Your power lies in peace. Proverbs 16:7 reminds us, when a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Sometimes the most powerful clapback is the joy you carry, the serenity they can't shake, the elevation they can't explain. God is using you, not just to heal yourself, but to convict others, to reflect what it means to walk in truth, in love, and in light. You are not their punishment, you are their reminder. And until they confess, repent, or evolve, they will keep dodging your gaze, because it's not your face they're afraid of. It's their own reflection in your light. So keep walking tall, chosen one. You're not running from anything, you're just rising. Point 3, the person they lied to defended you. Here's where it gets spicy, chosen ones. You've been walking in your divine assignment, minding your own business, carrying peace like armor and truth like a torch. Yet while you were doing nothing but living in alignment, someone was behind closed doors launching a silent attack on your character. They weren't content to let your light shine undisturbed. They had to dim it with deception. So they started whispering lies, stretching half-truths, and painting you as something you're not. In their minds, it was a done deal. They expected the person they were gossiping to nod along in agreement, toss in their own criticisms, and maybe even cut ties with you. They were confident, too confident, that their little campaign would work. But here's where the plot twists harder than a courtroom drama. It didn't. Instead of swallowing the poison, the listener paused, narrowed their eyes, and said, "That doesn't sound like them." And just like that, it was game over. One sentence brought the whole lie crashing down. What happened in that moment wasn't just a lucky break, it was a glimpse of divine protection in action. The Bible speaks of this in Isaiah 54:17. "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." But here's the deeper truth. Not every battle is yours to fight. Sometimes God steps in with reinforcements. Sometimes he uses the most unexpected person to shut down the enemy's plans. That listener became a divine witness. Something stirred in their spirit. Logic and discernment kicked in, and instead of joining the smear campaign, they stopped it in its tracks. Suddenly, the person telling the lie looked suspicious. Their story fell apart under scrutiny, and just like that, the accuser became the accused. This is how spiritual favor works. While you're off living your life, God is defending your name in rooms you've never entered. He's silencing lies before they gain momentum. He's planting conviction in people's hearts to stand up for you when you're not there. And the liar? They panic. They know their mask is slipping, their scheme is crumbling, and the spotlight is no longer on you, it's on them. That's why they go quiet. That's why they disappear. Because exposure is the one thing they fear most. And what's beautiful is that you didn't have to say a word. You didn't argue. You didn't chase the lie. You let truth do the talking. And it did. So don't waste your energy trying to clap back or seek revenge. Don't let bitterness take root. You're spiritually covered. When you live in truth, the universe conspires to protect you. Your reputation doesn't rest in the mouths of gossipers. It's built on your consistency, your authenticity, and your connection with something higher. People can try to throw dirt on your name, but when God is your gardener, that dirt becomes the very soil that nurtures your growth, and that's why you keep rising. That's why your glow intimidates those who tried to dim it, because no lie can bury what God has destined to bloom. Chosen one, stay grounded in grace. Stay unbothered. Keep showing up in your light. Your silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. Your presence is not noise, it's influence, and your protection, it's spiritual. So let them talk. Let them scatter. You've got places to be, higher places, and no whisper of deception can stop what's already been anointed. Point 4, your anointing makes them uncomfortable. You don't even have to say a word, not a sentence, not a syllable, not even a glance. Just your presence carries conviction. Why? Because when you're a chosen one, your energy isn't average. Your very existence challenges people without you lifting a finger. There's something deeply unsettling about someone who walks in quiet confidence, calm authority, and divine alignment. It doesn't matter what room you walk into, what clothes you're wearing, or what words you do or don't say. Your spirit does the talking before your mouth ever opens. Your glow isn't just about outer appearance. It's your energy, your peace, your alignment with purpose. It's the way you've walked through fire and come out golden. It's the unbothered grace you carry after surviving storms that would have broken most people. And yes, your glow irritates demons. Not necessarily pitchfork-carrying ones, but the ones within people. The bitterness, jealousy, insecurity, pride, envy, all the spiritual parasites that people feed, thinking it makes them stronger. But when you enter the space, your very light exposes their darkness, and they hate it. That's why your peace makes chaos twitch. You're not loud. You're not even trying to prove a point, but just being settled in yourself, grounded in your identity, radiating calm while everyone else is in disarray. It offends people, because people living in chaos often feel powerful when they can control others emotionally. But when they can't rile you up, when your peace is stronger than their manipulation, that's infuriating. You just quietly keep being you, and it drives them mad. And then there's your wisdom, oh yes, your insight. You don't just see what's happening, you see through it. You see people's intentions, their patterns and their wounds. You're discerning. You don't need gossip to know what's up. You read the energy. And nothing terrifies a pretender more than someone who sees behind the mask. That's why fools can't stand you, because your wisdom unmasks their foolishness. It's like holding a flashlight over a cockroach. They scatter. Now let's talk about those people who tried to slander you. The ones who mocked you, doubted you, and maybe even tried to assassinate your character. You didn't retaliate. You didn't launch a smear campaign or try to clap back. You let God handle it. And He did. Because now, every time they see you, they don't just see you. They see the living, breathing reminder that their words didn't work, that their projections didn't stick, that all their efforts to bring you down only elevated you further, and now they feel exposed, foolish, petty, small, and the worst part for them, they know you know. You saw through it all. You heard the lies, the whispers, and the shade, but you chose not to lower yourself. That's what really stings. The game they played, the one they thought you were too naive to catch on to. You knew the whole time. You just let God write the ending. But here's the key. You didn't get bitter. You got better. You didn't become like them. You didn't let darkness harden your light. You stayed true, and that's why you keep rising. Because as much as God uses your enemies to test you, He also uses you to teach them. Your success becomes their syllabus. Your healing becomes their homework. And your peace, that's the final exam. They can't pass until they humble themselves. So let them sit with their regret. Let them wrestle with what they did. You don't have to gloat. You don't have to throw it in their face. Just keep glowing. Keep walking in peace. Keep being the chosen one, because your existence alone is the loudest sermon they'll ever hear and the one they'll never forget. Point 5, they fear you know the truth. Let's be real. Some of the people avoiding you aren't doing it out of guilt. If they were truly guilty, they'd have wrestled with their conscience, done the inner work, and maybe even come to you in humility. But guilt requires self-awareness, and self-awareness requires growth. What many of them are actually running from isn't guilt, it's fear. Not the kind of fear that transforms the soul, but the kind that comes from knowing the mask is slipping. They're afraid you see through them. They're terrified that somehow, without a single word from their lips, the truth has found its way to you, and it has. Because when you walk with divine purpose, God doesn't leave you ignorant. He doesn't always expose the lie through loud confrontation. Sometimes He whispers the truth straight into your spirit. That slip of the tongue someone made, that message they sent to the wrong person, that conversation you just happened to overhear at the right time. That wasn't luck, that was divine intelligence at work. God doesn't always block the weapons formed against you, but He'll sure teach you who's loading the gun. And here's where the story gets interesting. You don't even clap back. You don't need to. You have receipts, but you're not cashing them in. You could expose everything and ruin reputations with a whisper, but you choose peace over pettiness. Why? Because you're too anointed to entertain chaos. You've outgrown the need for revenge. When you're walking in alignment with your calling, you don't waste time proving anything to people who were never rooting for you anyway. And that's what really rattles them. Not just the fear of being exposed, but the fear that you're unbothered, that their betrayal didn't break you, that you're still thriving, still glowing, still moving forward with grace and power. Your silence speaks volumes. While they spiral in anxiety, replaying every shady thing they said or did, you're focused on your purpose. While they fear exposure, you're rising into rooms they never imagined you'd step into. That kind of quiet strength is unnerving. Psychology backs this up too. Silence in the face of conflict often unnerves the guilty far more than confrontation. When people can't predict your next move, they fear the unknown. Studies in behavioral science show that unpredictable responses trigger more anxiety than predictable consequences. That's exactly what your silence does. It leaves them guessing, second-guessing, and fearing the fallout that never comes, because you're not operating on their level anymore. You're above it. You're not distracted by noise because you've learned the value of peace. You've graduated from the betrayal, and your diploma is your calm. Your growth has made you a mirror. When people look at you, they don't just see who you've become. They're confronted with who they failed to be. So let them avoid you. Let them keep their distance. That's not your loss. It's your confirmation. You're no longer who you were when they wronged you, and they know it. They feel it. They fear it, because you're no longer a victim of their story. You've become a testament, a walking revelation that God not only vindicates, He elevates, and that's better than revenge. Point 6. They realized you were the blessing. Let this marinate for a moment, not just in your mind, but deep in your spirit. You were the gift. You were the helper. You were the answered prayer they once cried for in silence. They begged the universe, begged God for a breakthrough. And guess what? That breakthrough showed up in the form of you. You didn't come in arrogance. You didn't arrive with a loud trumpet or a grand announcement. You came with open hands, a pure heart, and divine timing. Your presence brought peace to their chaos, clarity to their confusion, and value to a space that had been empty far too long. You saw their potential when they didn't see it in themselves. You poured into them, encouraged them, and showed up for them, even when you weren't asked to. That's the thing about divinely assigned people. They move with compassion, not ego. But here's where the story twists. They threw it away. Not because you lacked value, but because they couldn't handle the weight of your light. Your confidence made them question their own. Your purpose exposed their lack of direction. Your authenticity challenged their mask. And instead of healing alongside you, they let insecurity speak louder than truth. They believed lies whispered by their own fear and entertained those who were threatened by your presence. So what did they do? They pushed you away, rejected you, and tried to dim your glow, not realizing they were extinguishing their own blessing in the process. Fast forward to now, the very people who once mocked you, they're not laughing anymore. They're silent, watching, wishing, wondering, because now they know. They've connected the dots. They realize you knew the whole time. Their intentions, their fears, and the silent competition they were running in a race you never signed up for, and suddenly the joke's on them. But here's where you rise higher. You don't get bitter. You get better because you understand something deeper. Even your enemies were part of the divine curriculum. God used them to strengthen your discernment, to sharpen your wisdom, and to remind you not everyone who claps is for you. Their rejection was really your redirection. Their jealousy, just confirmation of your calling. Now they sit in the shadows, not because you banished them, but because the shame of fumbling someone so divine is too much to bear. It's humbling. It's painful. It's the kind of regret that lingers long after the crowd has gone home. They scroll through your updates, overhear your name in rooms, and quietly realize that was the one, and I lost them. But you keep rising, not to spite them, but because that's what light does, it rises. You walk in your purpose, not out of revenge, but out of reverence for the gift God made you to be. You understand now, you were never too much. You were the exact measure of what they needed, but weren't ready for. And if they ever dare to whisper again, it won't be mockery, it'll be awe, because they'll remember how they mishandled a miracle, you. Point 7, God is protecting your peace. Here's the final and most powerful reason. God removed them, period. You didn't slam the door, you didn't stop calling, you didn't even change. In fact, you were still loving, still patient, still showing up when it made no sense to, but let's be real. Something in your spirit started to shift. There was a holy discomfort, a sudden silence, an unexplained distance. That wasn't random, that was divine intervention, because God saw it all. The side conversations, the secret jealousy, the energy masked as concern. He saw the shade behind the compliments. He heard the words they whispered when they thought you weren't listening. And more importantly, he saw the intent behind it all. While you were showing love, they were planning your downfall. While you were speaking life into them, they were plotting to drain yours. So God, in His wisdom, did what only He can do. He orchestrated divine separation, not to punish them, but to protect you. Science tells us that when we experience emotional pain, the brain reacts the same way it does to physical pain. That's why losing people, even toxic ones, hurts. But while your heart was aching, your destiny was awakening. God knew you needed to be separated from the noise so you could hear his voice more clearly. He wasn't just removing people, he was clearing the runway for your takeoff. Because when you're called, when you're anointed, when you're chosen, you can't afford unnecessary turbulence. Your calling is too great to be tied to messy souls. Your destiny is too precious to be distracted by drama. And God doesn't mix holy oil with dirty motives. You're on assignment. You're not here to entertain dysfunction. You're here to elevate. And sometimes, elevation requires isolation. Even Jesus had to separate from certain crowds to fulfill his mission. Remember when he told certain people to stay behind while he went up the mountain to pray? That wasn't rejection, it was divine prioritization. And that's exactly what God is doing with you. He's pruning your circle so your roots can grow deeper. He's cutting off what can't go with you into the next season. Because let's face it, what's the point of reaching your destiny only to drag dead weight with you? And here's the twist. When they finally realize that you knew about the envy, the manipulation, the shade, they'll feel foolish. Not because you exposed them, but because you outgrew them without ever saying a word. That's the power of silence and spiritual maturity. You let God handle it, so don't confront them, don't chase closure, don't demand an explanation. When God removes someone, it's not your job to send a search party, it's your job to keep walking, keep glowing, keep growing. Your peace is the loudest response, and your elevation is the only announcement you'll ever need. Let them sit with their regret, not because you're bitter, but because consequences are real. When someone mishandles a divine gift, they don't just lose a person, they lose an opportunity that was handpicked by heaven. Chosen one, you weren't just another person in their life. You were a blessing sent to shift atmospheres, to inspire growth, and to awaken purpose. But when they lied about you, when they tried to smear your name to protect their ego or gain favor, they didn't just sin against you, they resisted God's plan. And here's the twist. They lied to the person, and that's when everything changed. God, in his perfect justice, flipped the script. Suddenly you're rising in visibility and purpose, and they're fading into the silence of their own regret. This isn't karma. This is spiritual law in motion. Galatians 6:7 says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap." Now they're scrolling through your success, watching the glow up they never believed in. But you're walking in truth, grace, and power. Psalm 37:23 tells us, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord." And your steps, chosen one, are divinely aligned. You were never rejected, you were protected. What felt like abandonment was actually God shielding you from delay, deception, and destruction. So let them stay gone. Let them watch from afar, because your elevation is not just about your gain, it's about God's glory. When his hand is on you, no slander, no betrayal, and no lie can stop your rise. Stay faithful, stay focused, stay anointed. The world may have underestimated you, but heaven never did. And now they see it too. Until next time, chosen ones, keep rising.